This is a reading of an article by Marshall Burke. It's titled Climate Conflicts. You'd find it on page 188 in the Climate book by Greta Thunberg in section 3.19. I'm just going to read it to you because I think it's interesting. By many measures, humans have grown more peaceful towards one another during our relatively brief time on this earth. Large countries fight each other with less frequency, fewer people die in battle, and many types of conflicts between individuals, such as assaults or homicides, have become less common in many societies. Nevertheless, our world remains a violent place. Hundreds of thousands of people die in homicides every year, and homicide rates are now trending upward in many countries. The total number of organized armed conflicts around the world is also trending up and is now at the highest level seen in nearly a century. There's a graph here called Figure 1, and I'll show it to you. Leading to record numbers of internally displaced people and alarming levels of global hunger. And growing evidence suggests that climate change could exacerbate these trends towards violence. Scholars and writers have long suggested that climate might play a role in how humans behave towards one another. In Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Benvolio tells his friend Mercutio that they should return home because the heat of the day makes it likely that there will be a fight. They fail to do so and tragedy ensues. In Camus's, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, The Stranger, the protagonist, Meursault, becomes overheated while on an Algerian beach and shoots a man. More than a century ago, articles in mainstream economics journals argued that climactic shifts in the centuries around the birth of Christ led to the eventual violent fall of the Roman Empire. And in the last decade, a large number of researchers, enabled by much better data on the timing and location of human conflicts around the world, have shown how a changing climate in some contexts can raise the likelihood of human conflict. Why might a changing climate play any role in human conflict? Any individual conflict, one person harming another in an altercation, or a guerrilla group taking up arms against a government, is a complex event, likely with many interacting causes. While climate is never the only cause of a given conflict, a large body of research across many academic disciplines shows that it can be a finger on the scale, amplifying individuals or groups' willingness, ability, or incentives to fight one another. This is why the U.S. Department of Defense has long called climate change a threat multiplier, a factor that can exacerbate and amplify the myriad other reasons humans choose to fight. For decades, researchers in psychology have shown in laboratory studies that humans are more irritable and can be made to act more aggressively by turning up the temperature in the room they're in. This physiological response is evident outside the lab as well. In studies from around the world, hotter temperatures have been shown to lead to increases in aggressive driving, to increased violence in professional sports, increases in an array of violent crime, from domestic violence and aggravated assault to murder. Warming temperatures, maybe it should be that, and more extreme variations in rainfall have been shown to exacerbate the likelihood of group-level conflict, which includes events ranging from gang violence and riots to civil war. Hotter temperatures inflame gang violence in Mexico. Drought and hot temperatures increase civil conflict in Africa. El Niños provoke more civil conflict around the world. It's important to note that these findings are not just correlations. They're from carefully designed studies whose entire purpose is to carefully isolate the role of climatic variables from the myriad of other factors that might cause conflict. There are enough of these high-quality studies that we can do a meta-analysis, a study of studies, to summarize overall findings across dozens of published works. In doing so, we find consistent evidence that warming temperatures in particular can amplify the risk of various types of conflict, with the risk of damaging group-level conflicts going up by as much as 10 to 20% for every degree Celsius increase in temperature. These are large effects and imply a substantial increase in the possibility of violence as temperatures continue to warm throughout this century. We ignore these future risks at our own peril. However, climate is not destiny. Human societies can choose how much warming we're willing to tolerate, and we can also choose how to deal with the warming that does occur. Civil conflicts, once common in most of the world, have now been all but eliminated in many countries. In these societies, additional warming is unlikely to spur large-scale conflict. Similarly, other research has shown that even in conflict-prone societies or regions, Excuse me. Excuse me. It's unlikely. Additional warming is oh, sorry, I read that part already. Similarly, conflict-prone societies or regions, the expansion of social safety nets can help communities maintain their livelihoods in the face of climatic extremes, and in turn can effectively break the link between climatic extremes and conflict. Investments in vulnerable communities, abilities to withstand and thrive in new climates will be key to avoiding the worst consequences of a changing climate. So today I learned something new, and so did you. We learned it isn't just a correlation, that it's actually a carefully studied phenomenon, that increases in temperature can lead to increases in human violence. So if you belong to a peace church, a church that would be against war and conflict and that sort of thing, you are also needing to be against climate change, because it would appear that climate change is going to lead to more conflict and war unless there are interventions. So for those of you who are people of faith, who are against war and for peace, or people who are spiritual, yeah, this has more implications than we maybe have been led to believe. I hope this is useful food for thought for you. Enjoy.